Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, CSI Con Chennai. This topic is very close to my heart. It's about young CAD, young patients getting ACS, Indian ACS. This is the first machine learning derived score. This is like a Framingham for India. And we have actually found out if there is really a need to invoke the novel risk factors. I send you greetings from CSI Institute of Higher Medical Sciences, Whitefield. I have done my own machine learning analysis for this case. This was done as a scientific and a public health initiative at 2 hospitals, and we have also introduced our PhD scholars for this. So multitude of studies have actually confirmed that there is an accelerated atherometabolic syndrome in the Asian populations, especially Southeast Asia, especially in Indians. We have got many scores for atherosclerotic CAD, which leads to ACS, which is formulated across the world. We have got the Framingham, we've got the Reynolds, the score. We have got the Curious, the Procam Moonster, we have got the JBS and the ASCVD. But then, are all this applicable to our subsets? We are not very sure. If it's suitable to be used in our population is unknown. The FRS is believed to actually underestimate the risk, and the JBS has been seen, 3 has been seen to be more suitable in one of the studies across India by Dr. Iyengar from South India also. But among the Southeast Asians, India and China have been the fastest rising CAD population, incrementally rising in terms of mortality in young CAD at less than 50 years of age, which is a very devastating disease for both the patient and the family. For Indians, we do not have any predictive risk scores for ACS, which are especially seen, especially in any cohort, but especially for Indians below 50 years of age. So we have, since there are no predictive scores, the purpose of this study was to study the role of traditional and the novel risk predictors, which I'll be just mentioning in Indian population below 50 years of age with the first ACS in the same manner as the Framingham risk score, and to develop a new risk scoring algorithm for actually predicting the first ACS in this cohort. It's one of the largest population-based studies done, which is done prospectively from 2 sister concern hospitals, about 7 lakh patient years with a listing of more than 50 years of cumulative experience between 2 hospitals, and we only actually assume that the patients, the subjects, had the same prevalent risk factors and the lab values 1 day prior to the event, and it led to its causation in the same way that the FRS also was designed. The age group was all patients of 18 to 50 years of age, that is young CAD with the first ACS of both genders. All forms of ACS was included and studied individually. There was no particular exclusion criteria. SCAD was excluded. It was only 2 cases, but it was generally all other inclusion criteria were taken. We had studied the demographics, the clinical details, the traditional risk factors, and details of intervention done in 1323 patients satisfying inclusion criteria. It was then compared with 1400 patients with age more than 50 with the first ACS for a gender-matched cohort. Age is different, so only gender-matched cohort for the predictors. We had also actually traditional, what I mean by the novel risk factors is the non-traditional risk factors. We have tried to study the stress at workplace, type of job, insecurity of job security, particularly among a lot of daily wage laborers, migrant laborers who come to our hospital. Social strata, structure of diet was recorded, and the number of hours spent daily for exercise, that is meant for exercise, not just heavy labor, was taken, and outdoor sunlight exposure was also noted. Specifically, no novel risk factors, because this is not done in our hospital. They are expensive. We have not done them. ApoA1, ApoB1, LPA was not done, or it was substituted by easily available simpler ones, that is LDL or HDL. We have taken attributes as demographic, either nominal or continuous. The education as to what level it was done. Behavioral, again, smokers, cigarettes per day, and the compliance to meds. If there's information on the medical history of the patient, that is all as continuous variable. And the target variable was either 0 or 1. On the Excel sheet, I put it as either 0 or 1. That is either a risk of developing first ACS or not. So it is just a binary variable. It's a real-world analysis. We have not taken any of the specific novel risk factors which I mentioned, which is not done. And we have all taken the labs on that day as if it was on the day prior to the ACS. So both the patient groups were followed for more than 11 years. So this is the workflow of more than 7 lakh patient years totally, 1323 patients versus 1400. We have cleaned the data by machine learning. We have also compared it in terms of regression analysis as arm A versus arm B, and then developed a weightage factor. From 2011 onwards, we have applied it prospectively for all the patients to see for its accuracy. And then we created a risk model. This is the flow of the study. As I just mentioned, we have done the logistic regression and then applied it forward as well. We have applied 3 different machine learning models, that is random forest, logistic regression, and naive Bayes, and then again 3 more for the validation cohort. 6 were used totally. We have also done a forward prediction for goodness of fit. So this is in the forward cohort, that is in the validation cohort. As I said, why machine learning and not regression alone? Regression assumes a linear correlation. That is, if we have a 40-year-old with multiple risk factors, he is still worse, so age is not important. than, for example, a 65-year-old with a healthier lifestyle or a lesser risk factor. So then age will not become, as in what happens in the current models, regression, we think that is linearly correlated. It is not. So we have to bring in the patient here. We have got lesser precision with the recall value, so we had to, since we had lesser numbers, we have also taken the precision recall. I'll just come to that. Interrelated variables can be studied. That is, if we can study one variable in a patient, we can study many more with that. So in terms of results, 78% were males. We had 68% who had got a STEMI. That was the most common type of the ACS. And it was inter-group, it was comparable. So anterior wall STEMI between A and B was comparable. Inferior wall in numbers was comparable. In terms of the univariate analysis, the first 6 slides are the univariate analysis, where we have seen in terms of dyslipidemia was worse. We have got more hypertensives in arm A as compared to arm B. PAD was almost twice in the arm B, that is more than 50 years of age, peripheral disease. But diabetics were very high. We got a lot of patients who were young diabetics, particularly in South India. It's one of the commonest risk factors. COPD, active smoking was another risk factor. Then complying with 30 minutes for at least 5 days a week, that is exercise, was seen in abysmally less number of patients in both the groups. We have also seen vitamin D levels. It was available in 67% of patients. It was abysmally low, again, less than 30. It was seen in 76% of patients. Dental caries was seen in these patients. Kupuswamy scale was much worse. These are not the traditional risk factors that we see in the FRS or in the JBS3. This is for Indian data, since it is in Indians. And we see that annual income was also much lesser in these patients. So eating fruits daily and all was very, very low. BMI was significantly higher. This is a cohort of predominantly 75% South Indian patients. Then we also got a higher total cholesterol. CRP was available in 77%, was much higher in these patients as compared to arm B, but it could have been confounded by the MI. I cannot deny that. SIVA is a score that we use for the eye. It's called as Singapore Eye Visual Assessment Score. 65% of patients we had data because it was an ongoing process. I don't have data for all of them, but we have a good number. It was significantly higher in this patient. So we could see the eye and we can still predict the CAD. Interestingly, triglycerides formed an important point here. It is not considered as one of the traditional risk factors. In our patients, we actually got a higher triglyceride in the young population. The double vessel disease was as comparable to the age above 50, though single vessel was higher. And LVEF was not significantly different. They did as worse, whether it is need for ventilation or difficult extubation, renal dysfunction, age does not make a difference. They were as worse in arm A as in arm B. LVEF at 1 year mandating ICD was not again significantly different. So age is not a criteria. It is the inflammation that is more important. We see in terms of LDL, HDL, CRP, serum albumin less than 3.5, they are all worse even in the young. So as per that, we went with a logistic regression analysis. We got a score which was fairly okay, but when we applied a ML analysis, that is, we study each variable against each other variable, we got a 15 by 15 variable, so we see one patient against all the other variables of that patient. We actually got a much different analysis that the big four are really these four in our patients. You know, we have uncontrolled diabetes at admission, tobacco usage, HDL less than 35, lack of activity, vitamin D being very low, and the SIVA score being high. So if you see in terms of an ML analysis, we got this as our the predictors. The ramifications are that this is our Indian YCAD score, that is the young CAD score. It's the first such score in Indian literature. And if we go in terms of a forward validation, it's got very, very good accuracy of 0.85. None of the current scores have that actually. So it's not different between the observed and the predicted. You can see that. So my conclusions, sorry to overshoot, sir, but just 1 minute, is that the first Indian risk score with forward validation, there's a multi-parametric study. It's not just one study. We are studying many, many parameters. It brings in a lot of unique risk factors which have not been seen in Indian population or in world population, like triglycerides, for example, vitamin D, dental caries. This is not being spoken about. It lays stress on these parameters as well as uncontrolled diabetes, which is the most important parameter in our study. Thank you, sir.